All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?
Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today, before we start the show, I would like to bring up some business things that have kind of been on my mind so that you can know where to get more Where Am I to Go. First off, I'd like to talk about the Facebook page at Where Am I to Go podcast. It's on Facebook, and we've been posting some wonderful pictures of some of the places that we've been and some of the adventures that we've had. Not everything that we go and do is made into a podcast, and so we take pictures at different places and post those pictures so that you guys can enjoy some of the different places we've been. Also, I really am interested in listener feedback. I have an email address at whereamiitogopodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is whereamiitogopodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear some of the listeners' comments and some of their ideas of places that might be interesting to visit and go and do. I'm on kind of a limited travel schedule as far as the way that I travel and where I go, but if there's something extremely interesting, I would definitely do my best to build a trip around it. And the last thing, and the latest thing, is that I now have a Patreon account where if you want to hear the podcast early, you can go to Patreon/Loren Alberts, sign up for $3, $5, $10, whatever dollars if you were willing to support what I do and help us with our travel expenses and some of that kind of stuff. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. But what we're going to do is right now I have several podcasts that are banked, I guess you could say. I'm on, I think, number 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there, and I've got close to 35 that I have waiting to go out. I only put out about every week because I want to be able to keep a nice steady stream and not have a point in time when we have to shut down like a lot of other podcasts do for season 1, season 2. I'd like to keep this thing going year round. And I've been traveling quite a bit and have been hitting quite a few interesting places. We've been to a tattoo museum. We've been to the beach and have gone to several tourist attractions there, an underground tour. We did a cannery tour. We've just done all kinds of things, and I would love for you to be able to hear those early. So if you sign up with the Patreon, as soon as my editor Steve gets these things ready to go out, they will be put up on the Patreon page. And again, I would really appreciate your support. Now that I've got those things out of the way, I hope to hear from you, and I hope you keep on listening. And now, let's get on with the podcast. Hello, and welcome to Where Am I to Go podcast. Today, we happen to be at the Tillamook Air Museum in Tillamook, Oregon. If anybody's eaten any cheese, you know about Tillamook. It's right on the coast, and it's beautiful country. We've been traveling kind of down the coast. I've been to this museum probably 3 or 4 times, but not in the last probably 7 or 8 years. Today, we're here with Christian, who is going to give us our tour, and we're going to talk about this fantastic building. This thing is just unbelievably huge, and I guess we're going to get started. Why don't you give us a little bit of history here, Christian, on what this building is and why it's here and that type of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we're glad to have you here at the museum. So I'm glad to welcome you back after so many years. So so the hangar we're standing in is one of 2 hangars that were built here at the former Naval Air Station Tilllamook during World War II. The blimps were meant to house the hangars were meant to house blimps rather, and the blimps would be used for anti-submarine patrol for Japanese submarines up and down the coast. So you had crew members in the blimps, and they all had binoculars, and they would literally just scan the water looking for Japanese submarines during the war.
And how big were these blimps?
So they were about roughly about 250 feet in length, so and about 80 feet in diameter. So they were pretty good sized airships, so which sometimes made it a challenge flying, especially with as windy as it is here on the coast.
Right. Well, the thing that's amazing here is the size of this building. It's all made out of wood.
Right.
And this thing is how high?
So it's 192 feet up to crown. So
192 feet up to crown. And this thing's shaped kind of like a Quonset hut.
Right.
It's got a rounded ceiling in it. And how long is it? I mean,
so it's about 1,072 feet in length, though. So right about the average length of an aircraft carrier.
okay, so it'd be 2.5 football field.
That's right. Yeah. So
And he's got airplanes in here. This is an air museum. He's got airplanes in here, a couple of jets, and you used to have a big cargo plane in here and stuff, but it was just it dwarfed the airplanes that were in here.
Right.
It looked like you could put a whole lot more airplanes in here, and it just went on and on forever.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, a lot of museums have a real issue with space. We don't have that problem here because we're in such a massive hangar. But we like to call it history housing history. Like a lot of folks would visit like a historic house. Like if you're up in Astoria, Oregon, you'd visit the Flavel House, or if you're back up in the Northeast, you'd visit the Lizzie Borden House. The house itself, the home, is the attraction. And same way with the museum here, the hangar itself is definitely part and parcel of the attraction. So again, we do call it history housing history. So we have this this iconic building and all these historic aircraft housed inside it. And
That's really cool. I don't even know how to begin to describe the size of this building, but I do remember seeing a picture of an airplane actually flying through
That's right.
the building, and it was what, like
It was a T-6 Texan, which was a World War II trainer. And it was actually a fly-in that happened in 1950. There was a couple different airplanes that flew through the hangar that day. But it's pretty massive. It wouldn't be a real difficult feat to do when the doors were open. So.
So if you can imagine an airplane being able to fly through a building, that's how big this thing is, which is just mind-boggling in and of itself.
Oh, it is, yeah.
And this is all wood structure too.
It is all wood, yeah. In fact, a lot of visitors walk in here, tours in the museum that come out, and you mentioned, you have a conversation with them about how their visit was, and you immediately mention that the hangar was made of wood, and they kind of look at you funny like, wood? And then they walk back in here and they look up at the structure and they realize that it's wood. A lot of folks don't even realize that it's made of timbers, massive timbers. They just think it's a big metal hangar because that's what we're all used to. But of course, during World War II, all the steel and the aluminum and the metal was precious. It was being used for the ships, the tanks, the guns, and the airplanes. So there simply was not enough of it. So that's the reason why they ended up using such large timbers in the building of this.
Well, and then this being timber country, of course, that's what you had access to.
Yeah.
But these trusses, they're built like a truss, like what you'd see on a house, kind of. They're built in arch form. Everything's done, it looks like, with 2x8s, 2x12s, and the span on them is a good 10 feet.
Yeah.
That the truss makes its arch.
Yeah.
And just the way that it's arched is amazing. You've got a 10-foot or 12-foot piece that goes into another 10 or 12-foot piece that sits at a 10-degree angle all the way up over the top. But it doesn't give it a notchy appearance. It looks round.
Right. Yeah. No. It was really amazing. It was really novel at the time. They needed a massive structure in order to house 6 airships at a time. And the chief architect on the project, his name was Arsham Amariki, and he was actually an Armenian immigrant. And he actually proved mathematically you could build a 1,000-foot long hangar and build it out of wood, and it would withstand all the forces that work here on the coast. And of course, people thought he was crazy at the time. They said, "There's no way you could build a wooden structure this large. Nothing else of this size and materials had ever been designed in human history, let alone built." So they built it, and of course, he proved them wrong because they're still standing here. And it's really a testament to the vision and the fortitude and the perseverance during the Second World War. If you look up at the wood, it really gives you an idea. There's certainly a lot of wood, but if you look, there's actually 3.3 million board feet of lumber, which is about enough lumber to build 283 bedroom homes, and that's just in this one hangar alone. And of course, there was 2 hangars here originally at the Naval Air Station Tilllamook.
And what happened to the other hangar?
So the other one tragically burned down in a fire back in August of 1992. It was 5 days short of his 49th birthday. Unfortunately, you had the hangar. It was storing 139,000 bales of straw, and they suspect somebody, for whatever reason, had torched the straw. And so by the time the firefighters got here, they more or less just concentrated on saving the structure. The other hangar, Hangar A, was completely engulfed in flames at that point. So there was just really no saving it.
Wow. Okay, now one point that you brought up that might help with visualizing the size of this thing. You said that they were able to house 6 blimps.
6 blimps, yes.
6 blimps. If you can imagine how big a building would have to be to house a blimp.
Yeah. So there was housed in here were the K-class airships, which were, I think, as I mentioned earlier, were about 252 feet long and about 80 feet in diameter. So 252 feet is about the width of the hangar. So they
stored them widthwise, or they stored them lengthwise?
They stored them lengthwise, actually.
Lengthwise,
so,
and they had two in tandem all the way on back. Is that the way that they stored them?
Theoretically, you could cram 9 of the blimps in here, but they were only ever designed to house 6 at a time. Just because you have all sorts of other things that were being stored in here at the time. You had crash trucks, you had fire trucks, you had aircraft and visiting dignitaries. All of the equipment used to service the airships during the war were all in here as well. So yeah, well, you could get 9 of them in here. It wasn't typical to see that many in here. And
was this just storage, or was this also manufacture?
Just storage, yeah.
Storage?
Yeah, they were all built by Goodyear back in Akron, Ohio, and then shipped off to Moffett Field Naval Air Station down outside of San Francisco, and then inflated in San Francisco, and then flown up here to the base during the war.
Okay.
So
now something kind of interesting. I've looked for a blimp museum in Akron, Ohio. I was going to go through Akron. They don't have a blimp museum to document the Goodyear blimp, or I mean, there's so much history there.
Oh yeah.
And there is nothing as far as blimp history there. But you can get it here in Tillamook.
Yeah, I know, of all places, Tillamook of all places.
Okay, well let's kind of walk through and look at some of the displays that you have set up in here.
We can go maybe this way. So this is one of the first aircraft. This is, of course, the first aircraft you see when you walk in. It's an A7 Corsair II. The first thing that I always point out to visitors, which is really interesting, is the camels on the side of the fuselage here. So if you count the camels, there's actually 39 camels, and each one of those camels represents the 39 missions that it flew in the Gulf War.
Oh, so this one here was actually in the Gulf War?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So a real interesting piece of Gulf War history. So.
Okay, and we're looking at a good sized jet.
Yeah.
That military. Okay.
We also have the next one here I have here is the F-14 Tomcat, which most people know is made famous by Tom Cruise in Top Gun in the 1986 film.
Right. And you've got a stairway going up, so you can look into the cockpit and see what the planes look like. Now, is this one set up for landing on a aircraft carrier?
Yes, it was a carrier aircraft. So, which, I mean, you look at the airplane, the F-14 it's a massive aircraft as a fighter. Especially when you compare it to some of the other fighters, say like World War II fighters, which were actually quite small compared to modern day aircraft.
Okay, and then we're moving over to another area in here, and it looks like you've got a lot of flight simulators.
That's right. Yeah, this is our trainer area. So we set up a mock runway in here, so to give the appearance of the trainers actually flying. We have visitors, young or old, can climb into the trainers, pretend like they're flying. We have several different aircraft trainers.
You've got like 6 or 7 of them. It looks like here. And all of the tops are lifted up. Looks like you got a helicopter.
And we got a helicopter there as well. So
So you can sit inside of these things, take your pictures like you're actually the pilot inside of some of these planes.
That's right. Yeah. This is definitely one of the more popular areas of the museum. So
I can
especially
see that.
with the younger
very
visitors.
Interactive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and that's one thing we're really trying to shoot for here at the museum is more hands-on, interactive exhibits, more immersive exhibits.
Okay.
We really want visitors to be a part of the exhibits. I call it education through interaction, seeing and experience.
That's the only way to learn.
Oh, absolutely.
You can sit in a classroom all year long and not learn half as much as what you do by going to some of these museums and actually being able to participate in the history. Especially the way you've got this set up, where you've got your trainers open, you can get up and look in the F-14.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of that as we go on.
Yeah. Inside here, this is our exhibit hall where all the rare wartime and aviation theme artifacts are held. This is a climate control area, so we have a lot of artifacts from World War I to the present. We have items from Nazi Germany, we have items from Imperial Japan, World War I, Cold War era. So over here, some of the more interesting items on the top shelf, you'll notice there's actually parts of the great German passenger airship of the late 30s, the Hindenburg.
It looks like you've got some of the covering and some metal pieces, a little German Luger.
So yeah, a lot of really
I thought that the Hindenburg would have been so burnt you couldn't have got anything.
Yeah, there was a few remains left over, so they ended up in both private collections and in museums. So yeah, that skin was actually from the either the upper or lower vertical tail fin on the Hindenburg.
Wow.
So in fact, there's not very many museums around you that you're able to see remains of the Hindenburg. So
that is unbelievable. Like I said, the way when you watch those videos of the thing coming down, you sure wouldn't have thought that there was anything left.
Oh, yeah.
And here I'm looking at an actual piece of the Hindenburg.
Yeah, if you look closely, you can definitely see discernible burn marks.
Oh yeah,
on several pieces of the skin.
Wow. And then you've got some German medals and some helmets and some compasses and cameras. All of this stuff here is German. And then we move to the next rack, and what do we have here? This is Japanese. That's an Italian pistol.
Yeah, and I have
a bomb sight.
The Norden bomb sights that you would typically find in a World War II bomber. So very, very top secret during World War II, of course.
Lots of pictures on the wall of different planes in flight, different diagrams as to how the planes were set up, and wow, this is really a neat room. Some really neat displays. You got a gas mask in this display.
This is all World War I era we have here.
World War I. British Royal Army Medical Corps uniform.
One of the reasons I like to send visitors in here, just because if you look on the wall, is photos surrounding you of when it was an active Naval Air Station, so people can really get an idea of what went on here during the Second World War and exactly what it took to build the hangars. People just think, hey, they built the hangars, and that's great and all, but when you consider what it took to build the thing, they actually they started in November of '42, and it was the worst fall-winter combination in 25 years, and so. Yeah. Pictures here of the construction. Now, the construction was fairly fast, too, wasn't it? 9 months for this hangar.
9 months to build something this big.
Yeah.
That is just unbelievable to me. How many carpenters did they have working on it? Do you have any idea?
We don't have an exact number, but obviously there was quite a few that were working on both hangars.
So, did they build both of them in 9 months, or they built one and then built the other?
They built this one first, Hangar B, which is a long story why Hangar B was built before Hangar A, but Hangar B was built first, and then Hangar A, the second hangar, was actually built in 27 working days, if you can believe it. So, which is just astounding.
You said 27
working days. Yep.
No.
Yeah, isn't that
9 months for one and 20. But you're talking pouring the footings. I mean, these pictures are showing concrete footings that are just absolutely massive. Yeah. The doors, the skin, I mean, everything on this thing would have taken 27 days. Holy smokes. That's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and you can see some of the pictures here, some of the conditions that these that the crew had to work under. So November of 1942, when they started, they got 16 inches of rain. Ooh. And then December they got 17 inches of rain, and then that January of 1943 they got 18 inches of snow, which is absolutely unheard of here on the coast. So, the fact they built it in 9 months under those conditions is just mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling. Yeah, any conditions to think that they built it in 9 months is mind-boggling. Yeah. But then you tell me 27 days on the other one, and my mind is just totally blown here. I can't even fathom. I can't even imagine how many people it took to put the bolts in to all the trusses that are up there. I mean, just if you were just up there screwing bolts in, it'd take 100 guys. 27 days. Yeah. And then you've got a display as you first walk in here on women. You've got several uniforms and
Yeah, this is
and
our,
the things that the women
yeah,
were
absolutely.
involved
Yeah,
in.
they were involved in all branches of the service during World War II. The Navy, the Marines.
You got the waves, the spars, the Women's Reserve, U.S. Marine Corps. Wow. Yeah. Just
And we have some wave uniforms here, and then U.S. Army Air Force uniform here as well. So
that is cool. And then we can go back on over here. You've got an old radio receiver. What is that? A radio compass
yes, an
known
old
as
compass.
the football.
yeah.
It was used on the B-17 and B-29. Okay, now how did that work? It just looks like a blimp on a pedestal.
It does kind of look like a yeah. All the airplanes, if you look closely at them, all had those radio compasses. And again, yeah, they called it a football for obvious reasons. It's shaped like a very large football. This case is Naval Air Station Tillamook. So here's the bowling ball and bowling pins from the old recreation building that they used to have here on the base, where folks could recreate, of course, and they could have a game of bowling. They could go to the basketball court and shoot some hoops.
And what base what base was this?
So this was Naval Air Station Tillamook.
Naval Air Station Tillamook,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So there must have been a lot of military, because they had Fort Stevens
yeah.
up out of Astoria. Then
right.
you had Naval...
Yeah, you had you had the Naval Air Station up there in Astoria. Then Fort Stevens was separate from that.
Oh, really?
And then you had all the Naval Air Stations down in Northern California, out of Moffett Field there. And then outside of LA, you had Tustin, California, right outside of Santa Ana. You had 2 hangars like these down there as well,
Okay.
which are still down there. So.
Okay. Wow. This is really neat.
You can see a model.
And then you got
of
a
the
core
hangar
sample out of one of your concrete supports or
Yeah,
or
you can
foundations.
see how thick that concrete is.
Oh, yeah. And it's really pretty. I mean, the
Yeah.
aggregate they used is
yeah.
kind of pretty there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, more pictures. I mean, there's just tons of pictures. What's the story with this? This here's the underside of a blimp that torn from its mast in high wind. So that must have crashed.
That area, the crew compartment below the airship itself is called the gondola. So and this is a picture I'm showing you of the gondola right now. And the gondola, just to kind of put it in perspective, is about the size of a school bus. So it's pretty good size. And the crew would encompass about 10 to 12 people at any given time. And then you can see around you these large plexiglass windows, which really made it a great observational platform for spotting Japanese submarines during the Second World War.
Now, there weren't many. Did they do a lot of spotting? Were the Japanese submarines over this far very much?
Yeah, there was definitely Japanese submarines out there. In fact, Fort Stevens, just north of us, outside of Astoria, was the very first military installation since the War of 1812 to actually be shelled by an enemy combatant. Battery Russell was shelled by a Japanese submarine there. So what happened was the Japanese submarine fired at Fort Stevens because they thought there was an installation there. They weren't quite sure, but they were trying to provoke a response. Of course, the commander of Fort Stevens said, no, we're not going to give away our position at all. So they refused to fire back, and the Japanese submarine went on its way. But if you go up into Astoria, there's a plaque out there where one of the shells fell from the Japanese submarine.
Believe it or not, we supposedly saw the shell that fell.
Oh, did you? Okay.
The underground tours there in Astoria. We did a podcast there just a couple days ago. And he said that he had the actual shell there in his little museum.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's possible that maybe if you go there, you can see that. And then you've got some helmets, some air helmets for the pilots.
Medals and shoulder epaulets and a lot of items. This is our display for Imperial Japan during World War II. We have one of the silk flags with the Japanese characters written on there. They had a couple of different flags. Typically, like if you were a Japanese soldier during the war, when you left, you'd have friends or family members that would sign your name. I haven't seen the shell now. Wonderful. And then you also had other flags which would have they say like good luck and, you know, go get the enemy and give them hell and words of wisdom, words of encouragement. So you had a couple different types of Japanese flags that were typically given to Japanese soldiers during the war. These silk flags, they'd fold them up, put them in their pockets. So a lot of these flags ended up being brought home to the States here after the war. And then we have our 1943 Japanese Army winter flight suit. And if you unzip the suit, it's gorgeous. It's lined with white rabbit fur.
Oh, really?
You can tell it's one of the winter flight suits. Actually, it's difficult to see here, but there's actually a plug-in where you can actually plug the suit into the aircraft and heat the suit. So meant for flying in winter and at higher altitudes.
And you can see some of the white rabbit fur if you look inside the pocket.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this is just a really nice display room.
We have one of the a portion of the Japanese balloon-carrying bombs, which were sent on the jet stream over to the west coast as well. So you can see some of that skin here in the Japanese display. And
we were in a museum in Deer Lodge, Montana, and they've got a piece that's probably 2 foot by 2 foot of one of those balloons, which is really neat. But the story with those is they had school children build those balloons. They sent them in the wind currents on over with incendiary devices on them, and there was a family that was killed here in Oregon because they didn't know what it was, went over, got too close, and it blew up and killed them.
Wow. Yeah, right outside of in Brookings down there in Southern Oregon. It's really fascinating history. It's interesting because the Japanese knew about that wind current, the jet stream, and of course they didn't know it was called the jet stream at the time. So it's a very ingenious idea. The problem is typically the jet stream's strongest during wintertime, but of course starting Pacific North fires in the Pacific Northwest during wintertime is that's not that great of an idea because of how rainy it is here in the Northwest.
Right, but the ingenuity. They had barometric things on them that if they got too low, it would cause them to quit losing air or something, and they were all designed to where you need to look up and research a little bit of these incendiary balloons that were sent over because they sent thousands and thousands of them, but they had a lot of technology on them as far as how they were going to get it here. And when you think about how far away Japan is, and they didn't just make it here. We had one in Wyoming. They made it further east. I don't know how far east, but I know that several states reported them, like maybe Nebraska, maybe Indiana, and some of those states. They went a long ways with a little bit of air and just catching currents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's
Now I've seen 2 of those samples.
There you go. Yeah,
that just boggles my mind. I've heard about them, and now I see 2 since I've been doing this podcast. It's just unbelievable. Yes.
There's some of the areas on the home front.
That's
some of the aviation cameras. Yes, yeah, when you consider the power, all of us have on our iPhones now, so
this camera's got a lens on it that's 4 or 5 inches round at the front, and it's probably 2 foot long and sits up about 18 inches tall. That's a huge camera.
It is, yeah. No, there's so much wonderful stuff in the exhibit hall. You really have to take time and really look at each item and read the captions that we've put with each particular item. One of the things that I always found interesting, you don't have to take time reading it. These are the bomb fuse safety tags. So before they drop a bomb, they pull the fuse tags out there, and all the tags are actually written what particular area they were bombing, for instance. So like this is they're bombing Germany here.
And these are like pins on the hand grenades.
The bombs itself, so they're dropping. So like this bomb was dropped September the 7th. I can't read the exact date on there. On Ernden, Germany. So it's really fascinating to sit there and read all those. And
now, did these pins activate the firing pin like they do on a hand grenade? Where you pull the pin and then let the handle loose.
I believe so. So. Yes.
And then they documented where each bomb.
And then they popped it. Yeah, exactly. So they have the dates written on there and then where exactly they were dropped. And so it's really interesting to go and look at where these were dropped and then go out on and Google the names of the towns where they were dropped and look at that area nowadays. So and how much it's changed. So
just fascinating. And then you've got a fire truck display here.
That's right. Yeah. We have a lot of old vintage fire engines. So like this one is a 1958 fire engine. We also have a Seagrave fire engine on the other side, which was the type of fire engine that was out here on the base. We actually, the firehouse here housed 2 Seagrave fire engines here. So these are actually on loan to us. But
No, the thing that's cool is that this hangar is big enough you could have 10 museums in this doggone thing.
Absolutely.
When I was here before, you had several big commercial type airplanes in here, and then you had a trolley museum, then you had a couple of gyrocopters.
It was very eclectic.
You had just all kinds of stuff, and every time you turned around, it was like a different museum in here. And so now we've been looking at airplanes, we're looking at the exhibit hall, and we jump on out here, and now we got a fire truck display.
Yeah.
This got what, 6 or 7 fire trucks?
Yeah. So these are on loan to us from the Oregon Fire Service Museum in Salem. They're trying to start up their own fire museum there in Salem. So we're walking under a ladder now.
Now we just did a big fire museum in Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
That is a Hall of Flame.
And great.
So we did a podcast there, and it was fascinating. They had the old hand pump stuff all the way up through the modern fire engines, and
what a great name.
Yeah, Hall of Flame. It was. And so there's several really neat fire engines. A really nice ladder truck. Vintage.
And everybody loves fire engines.
You can't help but love them. They're cool. They're way cool. Okay, now we got an air crane, Erickson air crane from Central Point, Oregon. This plane is huge.
It is.
This one here used to be in the hangar, didn't it?
Very briefly, it was in the hangar. Yeah, and then they towed it. It was up kind of on the that grassy knoll above us here, and then it was towed down here several years ago, and then opened up as an exhibit.
And this thing's huge.
It is, yeah. So this massive bulbous aircraft, it's called a Mini Guppy, and its maiden flight was in May of 1967. And the Guppies themselves were.
Let's jump on up in.
Sure.
So the wind
go for it.
the wind affects us.
Yeah.
Pretty badly. So. Okay, so let's go back to Mini Guppy. Now I've seen a Guppy at the Tucson Air Museum has a Guppy, and the Guppy's worth Googling also if you want to see what that thing looks like. It's the strangest looking plane you'd ever see.
It is, yeah. That's one of the first questions people ask when they come to the museum is that, what's that bizarre looking airplane at the end of the building? So you have to tell them it's a Mini Guppy and the whole history behind them, and but they're really amazing. Going back to the, like you were talking about the Super Guppy down there, the Super Guppy and the Pregnant Guppy were the very first Guppies that were built. And they were designed purely to carry the Saturn boosters for NASA during the Apollo program. Because what they were originally doing with those boosters, they were taking them down through the Panama Canal and around to Cape Canaveral, which took them a couple weeks to do that. So you can imagine the time and the manpower.
Right.
So this company, Aerospace Lines, who built this thing, convinced them that, hey, you can haul this thing from Sacramento to Cape Canaveral in 24 hours. So NASA bit, and they built them, and the rest is history. So, I mean, to me, it's really amazing to think when they hauled these boosters, more than likely, we probably wouldn't have made it to the moon as fast as we did had it not been for these Guppies. And so this company, Aerospace Lines, they were so successful with the Super Guppy and the Pregnant Guppy, they decided, hey, we're going to build a third one, the Mini Guppy. So this is the Mini Guppy here at the museum. And it was mainly designed for contract cargo. So if you had anything oversized and you wanted it airlifted and carried, they'd carry it for you. So if you had a large boat, for instance, hey, call up Aerospace Lines and they'll carry it for you. So
they did private.
A lot of private stuff.
This thing's huge. It's what, 15 foot high?
I believe about 17 feet up to the top.
17 foot, and then it's round. So it's got to be 17 foot round.
So you can see.
And we're probably 150 foot long.
Yeah. So it's you can see right here where it's hinged. So this whole tail just swings open to the right. And
so the whole back 40 feet of it opens up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. And then you can just load right on in. It's got rails with platforms that move, so you can put things on the platform and be able to move them forward and then secure them back into place.
Yeah. So you can see,
and all you're looking at in here is just a basic tube, a fuselage.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any of the wiring and stuff that you see in so many cargo type planes. It's all just very basic and very, very open.
Yeah.
Really neat.
So we have some of the displays, because one of the interesting things about the Mini Guppies is that it wasn't just originally built as a Mini Guppy. Originally, it was built as a Boeing 377 Stratocruiser in 1949 that flew for Pan Am up until 1960. And basically, what they did is they had all these excess Stratocruisers when we were coming into the jet age, and they didn't know what to do with them. So what they did is they basically cut off the cockpit just after the cockpit, and then cut off the tail, and then slice those two sections together to make this massive aircraft you see as the Mini Guppy here today. So this was originally what the aircraft looked like here on the board when it flew as a Stratocruiser for Pan Am.
Okay, and it says that the maximum speed was 375 miles an hour. It cruised at 301. It had a range of 4,200 miles, so it could fly coast to coast.
This was for the Stratocruiser. So yeah, and they only built 56 of those Stratocruisers. So it was a luxurious airplane at the time. One of the interesting things I like to point out about the Stratocruisers is that it actually had a spiral staircase going down to a lounge.
Oh, really?
So you'd get up, you take off, you go down into this lounge, and then later on, when Boeing was designing the 747, they had, of course, the spiral staircase that went up. They actually got stole that spiral staircase design in-house from the spiral staircase that they had used for the Stratocruiser. So it's kind of that was luxury at the time. So
okay, so now did this one have similar performance speeds and stuff as the Stratocruiser?
Not when it became a Mini Guppy.
Okay.
So
okay.
Obviously quite a bit slower. So we have some of the specs on it up here, and with some of the items that it carried over here as well over the years. So here's some photos of when they chopped up the Stratocruiser and when they were putting it all together. So this is the gentleman at the time, founder and president of Aerospace Lines, Jack Conroy, a photo of him.
Okay, so this one here had a cruising speed of 240.
So yeah, it was
instead of
quite a bit slower.
340, yeah, so it was. And the range was 2,500 miles, which is still not far from coast to coast.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
probably is coast to coast if you're flying straight across.
This thing flew all over the world and back again. So uses the same engines, and
it's got a payload of 40,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Wow. And the length on it is 132 feet 10 inches, so 133 feet, and the wingspan's 156. And this thing fit inside of the hangar.
Yeah. You can see, Goodyear's Europa airship, the gondola. The airship was deflated. The gondola was put in here. It was a public relations platform for Goodyear in the 1970s. Was put in here. You can see it hauling. They're about to open up the tail, haul a Boeing 707 nose in the back of here. So you can imagine a Boeing 707 nose in here. I mean, it must have just taken up, a good chunk of the cargo hold here.
Wow.
NASA's Pioneer 10 spacecraft, it carried that in 1972.
And this is something that everybody can go into. Again,
absolutely,
it's part of the interactive part of your museum. Now we're going to go up here to the cockpit, and it's going to get a little bit noisy, so you might hear some of the background noise as we step up here. This is really interesting. For an airplane as big as what this is, this cockpit's only 8 foot wide and 8 foot long.
And it's difficult to even see the windows when you're outside. In fact, a lot of folks go, how the heck did they find this thing without any windows? So you have to look really, really closely to see the windows, because, if you step back here, actually look at this section. This is actually the Stratocruiser section right here that they built on top of. So it gives you an idea of the original size of the airplane relative to the Mini Guppy we're in today.
And so then you had a pilot, co-pilot, and a navigator.
Yep.
And sitting up like this, it might be kind of hard to even see where you were going from this perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Lots of gauges, controls. Somebody had to know what the heck they were looking at.
Yeah.
This is just way cool, and the interactive part, being able to come up in here, see it. experience it, like you said, is just awesome for people with children, even people that don't have children. I'm
Absolutely.
impressed. I do have children, but they're just not with me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, especially, you know, because I have a 7-year-old daughter, you know, and she loves this stuff, but she likes to be able to climb into this stuff and experience the stuff and interact with the stuff. So, you know, this is great for kids like her.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely worth the visit if you're anywhere near Tillamook. So, I mean, the cheese factory's good too, but, I'd take this
cheese
over the cheese factory.
Nobody makes better cheese and ice cream than the Tillamook Cheese Factory.
Right. I'd have to agree with that. But they're kind of closed down right now with all this COVID stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to be
unfortunate.
able to do with them, as far as probably won't be able to do a podcast, but I was hoping to go watch it anyway.
And you look up, you can see, if you look up, you see the size of these doors here. So there's 6 doors, or what they call leaves. And each one of these doors is 120 feet tall and weigh between 30 to 40 tons each.
Wow.
So,
and they're all on a track.
And they're all on
so they all
tracks.
slide open.
Yeah.
And so you got 3 slide to the right and 3 slide to the left.
That's correct, yep.
Yes.
And it's quite a spectacle when we do open the doors here. What we do is, originally they were motorized during the Second World War, and nowadays we just use an aircraft tug and push them and pull them open and closed.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, when you get on the aircraft tug and start to open them or close them, all eyes are on you. I mean, everybody's like wondering, how the heck do they open those things? It's just, yeah.
Well, when I was here years ago, I'm not seeing it right now. Maybe it was on the other end.
I was just going to point that out. I think of the basketball hoop.
The basketball hoop.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
At the top of these 120-foot tall doors.
There you go, right up there.
There's a basketball hoop, of all things. I doubt if anybody ever made a basket.
I don't think, but 120 feet.
I can't even imagine how somebody could get a ball up that
I
high.
know,
A half-court
no way.
shot's pretty good.
Absolutely.
But,
There's one on the other side too, so you could do a full court game if you really wanted to.
Oh.
So yeah.
Yeah, 200-yard full court basketball game.
We might think about bringing the playoffs here one day. So.
Yeah, you'd need some pretty tall Harlem Globetrotters to pull that one off.
It'd be a very low-scoring game.
Yeah, so I remember that from 20 years ago.
Yeah. In fact, we have a scavenger hunt that we give a lot of the visitors, and that's one of the bonus questions on the scavenger hunt is can you find the basketball hoops, because they're very really difficult to find. Actually, you really have to look up into that area.
Yes, you do.
And nobody would think they'd be up at 120 feet.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So they got this massive cargo aircraft here. This is a C-27 Spartan. It was built in Italy, and it was used by the Army in the early 1990s. It's since been retired, so it's now on exhibit here at the museum. So,
and this is just a dual engine, just 2 engines, and it's prop plane.
Yeah,
what kind of payload did it have?
Looks very similar to a C-130, although quite a bit smaller than a C-130 actually. So, yeah, this one was used quite a bit in Panama.
Oh, okay.
So you'd use it mainly for like drug interdiction down there in Panama.
Okay.
So yeah, really.
It's kind of a beefy looking plane.
Yeah.
It's just kind of short and fat. Huh.
So this is another one of our exhibits, which is new within the last couple of years here. This is the Anderson Air Raid Shelter. You know, kind of going back what we were talking about earlier, all the interactive exhibits we're trying to put together. So this is the exact same size of air shelter that you would find in London, England during World War II. So back during the German Blitz, if you were a family and you wanted to escape falling German bombs, you would actually construct one of these shelters called the Anderson Air Raid Shelter. And they were partially buried backyard shelters. You build them in your backyard, and then of course when the air raid sirens go off that you can hear behind you here, you'd run out to your shelter, and they protect you from those German bombs coming down. So we've...
Now, are they called Anderson shelters because Anderson Company built them?
This is actually who they were named after here, Sir John Anderson. This picture was taken of him in 1943, so they're named after him. They're more or less his idea, and so they were used primarily during the Blitz rather, during the Second World War, early on in the Second World War rather. We built into the, we got all the specs and built it exactly like it was during the Second World War.
And it's got kind of slope sides coming down. It's what, 8 foot long and about, it's only 6 foot wide. It's got 4 bunks in it.
Yeah. It was meant to house a family of about 4 to 6 individials.
It would have been tight. By the time you got through, you didn't like your brother anymore.
You feel that? We even used the correct gauge steel that they used because it was meant to withstand, protect you from a 500-pound bomb within about 50 feet. So
and it's arched for the most impact resistant. But this steel that they're using is probably like 2 or 3 sheets of the corrugated tin that you see on a lot of buildings and that kind of stuff.
So we want folks to be able to get in there and really experience as much as you possibly can what life was like during the Second World War in one of these air raid shelters, and the fear that people must have felt when the German bombers came up, when you hear the droning of those engines and the German those bombs were falling,
Well, and the fear must have gone the other way when they heard the British and the American bombers coming in Germany.
Absolutely.
I mean, war can't be a fun thing to get to experience and live through on either side.
Yeah. So we have a bunk on each side here, so we have room for 4 individuals in this shelter. But again, sometimes they had 2 smaller bunks for kids in the back. So we want visitors to actually be able to get into the shelter and almost have that almost like claustrophobic feel of what it must have felt like during the war to be stuck in one of these shelters during the war. But of course, better than the alternative.
Right. So, and then you've got a nice video here showing a lot of the damage and how some of these shelters actually held up under the bombing. I mean, everything's destroyed all the way around, and the bunkers sitting right in the middle that's still standing. Wow. Yeah, that is really
these shelters
interesting.
Were actually provided to citizens, British citizens, free of charge if you made under a certain level of income.
Oh, really? That is really interesting. And it says that initial tests of Anderson's shelter consisted of dropping 1.5 to 2 tons of brick and stone upon a test shelter from heights up to 25 feet. And placing 75 tons of pig iron on an unburied model.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they were really tested extensively.
No doubt.
So they knew they worked well ahead of time. We have our this is called the Hall of World War II. We had one gentleman actually named Steve Schramm, local out of Salem, Oregon. He actually built all this over a period of a number of years, of course, and put all this together.
I hope he owned stock in model glue.
Right, yeah.
Because he used a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, there's got to be...
His father was a Korean War vet. Yeah, and that is amazing.
Okay, I'm going to take a wild guess. There's 10,000 pieces in here.
That's a good guess. I don't know actually. Man, it's a really good guess.
I'm not super good at guessing. People will find I say something's 40 foot long, and then I get corrected. No, it's only 35, or they tell me it's 75. But there are models of just about every kind of warplane. You've got a aircraft carrier, a German aircraft carrier with 8 airplanes and the little lifeboats, and
these are all European battle scenes on this side, and then on the other side of the wall next to us here are the our Pacific battle scenes.
But we're not just talking airplanes; we're talking all of the ships,
tanks,
guns, everything,
airplanes,
everything military is displayed here in model form, and a lot of them are handcrafted, not coming out of a box.
Yeah.
Wow. This is just amazing. You've got a dock set up over here where people are coming down onto a submarine. You've got the cranes working on the submarines. Wow.
This is one of the ones that's kind of near and dear to my heart, the Battle of the Bulge. My great uncle Bill was actually a 99th Infantry in the Battle of the Bulge. So, we grew up with him, and and all his stories. And so, and now I go back and I listen to his stories about what happened during the Battle of the Bulge, and it's just, it's unbelievable. So.
And this little, not little, this room is just full
Right.
of models.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're not talking. When I say 10,000 pieces, I'm not talking about the people and the little accessory things like barrels in the backs of the trucks and stuff. We're looking at. I'll bet there's over 1,000 tanks, or maybe even 1,500 tanks in this one display area of the Battle of the Bulge. Wow.
Yeah, this is a relatively recent addition to the museum within the last couple of years here. So,
And I'll bet it took more
very
than
popular.
9 months to put this together.
Yeah, right.
Holy smokes! Just ships and tanks and guys. Each one of these half tracks that are here have 7 or 8 guys laying in them, and machine gunners standing at machine gun, and
Yeah, it's almost overwhelming.
it is almost overwhelming. I'm just sitting here looking and pretty much just stupefied at what I'm seeing, and we're just going down one aisle here.
Right,
We got
right.
another aisle of this. This is fantastic. Just wow! Somebody had a lot of time. I can't believe that one guy was able to put all of this together.
Yeah. Here's the gentleman, Steve Schramm, out of Salem, Oregon. Here, as I mentioned, his dad was a Korean War vet, so he's always been fascinated by history. And
And so, does he have a regular job? Of course not.
He does, but he does still. That's just, I don't know how he finds the time really to do it. The guy's amazing.
He's beyond amazing. Wow, the detail. I mean, and a lot of these ships and stuff, like I said, they're not box kits. He's got these things carved out of wood.
Yeah.
The guns are all made out of wood. Everything's made out of wood as far as custom made replicas of these ships.
He's even built us a hangar out of the same materials as you walk in there. I'll show you later too. So it's
Wow.
So
Aircraft carriers. This is just unbelievable. It's hard to even imagine that one man in a lifetime, maybe in 2 lifetimes, could put this together. Wow.
Yeah, and at one time you think about, it was all an accommodation. I think of an attic and a basement, and storage facilities, and so.
Wow. Yeah, there's people get addicted to things, but I can't even imagine being this addicted to, to building models. Maybe the model glue gets in.
Yeah, it is really amazing. So it's definitely one of the more popular new exhibits that we have at the museum here.
Yes, that is just fantastic.
We have one of our newer exhibits we're also working on right now. It's nearing completion. Is our Holocaust exhibit right here.
You've got a whole
And
other
more,
room
yeah,
of more of these models.
Yeah.
Wow. Submarines, missiles, broken submarine, one sitting on the bottom of the ocean. Wow. Okay. You got a submarine base where they're loading the torpedoes, and I didn't realize the hatches were in the front of those for loading the torpedoes and stuff. I never really thought about how they got them down there. Trains. Wow. This right here could be its own museum.
Oh, right, I know.
This is just unbelievable. Wow. Yeah, if anybody comes to this museum, you need to take the side trips. These side trips are
There's always
just
like
unbelievable.
little nooks and crannies they have. So
Yes.
So yeah, this is our newer Holocaust exhibit. It's actually it's titled "Stars Without a Heaven." It's about children in the Holocaust. It's actually in partnership with the World Holocaust Remembrance Center. So this is something, as I mentioned earlier, a newer exhibit we're just about nearing completion on. So.
Okay, and this has a lot of banners. You've got a video going on, just with the explanation of I guess children in the Holocaust, in the
it's
the
really,
concentration camps, labor camps.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking when you read these stories. I mean, it's just children in particular, especially having a young child myself. It's absolutely heartbreaking what happened to children. Well, everybody in the Holocaust, really. But
well, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. is how privileged we are.
Oh, absolutely.
Our generation,
Yeah.
the generation before us, you know, and the generation under the two generations under me, you know, these kids have no idea what our great grandparents went through.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as just labor laws, and so many other things, you know, they didn't know a time without war. You had the Civil War, then after the Civil War, you have the World War I, then World War II, then the Korean War. Their whole life was lived in war.
Right.
And having the luxury and the time to be able to go skateboard down on the skate park just didn't happen for these people.
Yeah.
You know, they were working when they were 10 years
Absolutely.
old because the family needed it.
Right.
And we are just so doggone lucky at this stage in the game.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so here's Auschwitz concentration camp that you've got a little panorama of.
This was made by the same gentleman, by the way, Steve Schramm, who built all that. Of course.
So he didn't only have time to carve all that,
right.
he made another one.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
I'm told by him he's actually working on the Roman Empire now too, which is really, I mean, there's no end. I mean,
wow, that is just I'm going to Salem. I might need this guy's phone.
Yeah,
number
there you
just
go.
so I
Yeah, I'll hook
interview
you two up and.
Except I don't want to start talking about every single model he's done because I'll be there for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. How long's your podcasting? Yeah.
Okay, here we're looking at a plane wreck, it looks like.
Absolutely, yeah. So this was an aircraft that turned out was it was discovered back in 2010. Discovered up in the woods by one of the local lumber companies.
Here in Oregon?
Here in Oregon, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, they immediately came to us and said, hey, do you know what this is? So we did a little research, and we found it was a World War II dive bomber, the Curtiss SB-2C Helldiver. Excuse me.
We're not doing COVID, we're just talking too much.
I'm talking too much, yeah. Oh, yeah. Common problem with me is talking too much, but... so it turns out it was one of the aircraft that was being stored in the hangar here after World War II. So what they did, once the airships left, they used both hangars during the war to house surplus aircraft. They'd fly them in from literally all over the world and take the props off, take the wings off, and just store them here. And then when the base was officially closing down in 1948, they were flying all these airplanes into other areas for storage, and this is actually one of the planes that was being stored in here and then flown out in 1948. Unfortunately, didn't make it very far. It crashed probably several minutes after takeoff, a little bit north of here, between Rockaway Beach and Wheeler. Unfortunately. And it's really kind of a sad story, actually. The gentleman who was flying it at the time, that's actually a picture of him. His name was Bob Smedley. He was a chief aviation pilot during World War II, and he was a ferry pilot. So he'd go to location and he'd move an airplane from one location to another. And he came up here just on a routine mission to move this thing ultimately down to Corpus Christi, Texas.
Okay.
But unfortunately never made it that far and was tragically killed not long
but
after
he
takeoff.
was but he was recovered. They just left the plane, or
they just left
was
the plane.
Whole plane discovered at that time?
They did, so they removed some of the items that they could have reused and then just left the wreck. Of course, after the Second World War, they didn't even want whole aircraft, let alone ones that had wrecked. So they removed his remains, buried him down in Long Beach, California. Removed some of the personal items, any of the personal items that they had found at the time. And then, so when they found this back in 2010, the wreck was more or less rediscovered.
Okay.
So then they sent a team called JPAC, which was the Joint Prisoner of War Missing in Action Command, up there to look for any more human remains up there, because everybody had pretty much forgotten that it was up there. So we went back, found the accident report. The team went up and discovered more personal items from the pilot. Of course, the wreck, as you see it here. Here's some of the personal items.
Now, is this laid out the way that they found it, more or less?
So we want to display it exactly as we found it up in the woods. Here's some of the sadly, some of the personal items from Bob Smedley.
Part of his
G1 flight jacket. If you fold that over, you can see the shoulder epaulette there. This is the silk parachute. It appears he attempted to bail out at the last minute.
Wow.
So a lot of parachute components there, parts of the aircraft.
And then you've got this display that's pretty good sized. I'd say this is probably 60 by 60 or so, 60 by 30, that has the plane exactly like how they found it, documented it, and brought it in here and put it on display.
Yeah.
So you can see a real plane wreck right here.
It took me quite a bit of research, but what's kind of interesting is actually found they had a daughter at the time. She was only 6 months old at the time. Her name's Susan. She lives down in Atlanta now. And I was thinking about her age, and I was thinking, geez, she's probably about the age of my mother. So it'd be really interesting to, to try to locate her, especially since we had found her dad's airplane. So I actually found her stepdad, who happened to live in Hawaii. I contacted him, and I said, hey, can you have your stepdaughter Susan contact me? We have this wrecked airplane that we found of her father's. And so she immediately called me the next day and supplied me with pictures and information about her dad. Sadly, she was too young to remember her dad at all.
But I'm sure she heard the stories as she was growing up.
Yeah. So, and it's just, and then, here's her mom there. And Babette Smedley. She was actually more or less a Rosie the Riveter in Northrop Aircraft down in Long Beach. So it was kind of interesting. And this is really sad. It was sent. This telegram was sent to his wife Babette 12 days before the crash. It says, "Coming home, love, Bob." And of course, Bob never made it.
Right.
So, and I'm still in touch with his daughter Susan Smedley. So this is a great tribute.
Has she been
to her
here
dad
to visit the museum and stuff?
She has not been able here to visit. So I look forward to having her here one of these days soon. So. So it's really it's a lot of folks will walk up and they'll think, oh, just a wrecked airplane, but that story behind it, I think that really moves you and moves all of our visitors. So when I tell that story to tour groups, everybody gets all teary-eyed when they read the story and they hear about what really happened.
Right. Yeah, and this is what I enjoy so much about my podcast is we're able to pick up on some of the backstories because not everybody gets to tour with someone like you. Yeah. Okay, now we've got another interactive display where you've got a Corsair 880.
This is the forward fuselage of an old Convair 880 built down in San Diego, California. So a lot of folks don't remember the Convair 880s because they only built 65 of them at the time. They were more or less the brainchild behind Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes, he didn't necessarily care how many passengers the airplane held. He wanted something that went faster than anything else. So, and it did go significantly faster than anything else at the time. Its cruising speed was in excess of 600 miles an hour, which is faster than a lot of airliners cruise at nowadays. So, designed and built by Convair Aircraft down in San Diego, and unfortunately, they never lasted too long. They were retired in the early 1970s, but they were fast airplanes at the time. Talking to pilots who flew these things, they said they climbed like a homesick angel. It was like flying a military airplane. So that's how fast these things were. So,
and this is one that you can go up into the cockpit. You can go up into the fuselage. And see all of that again. Very interactive.
The rear half of the aircraft was scrapped some years ago, but we do have this center section here, about 40-foot section. Convair 880. So really wanted to get people an idea of what commercial flying was like back then, the 60s. Really, at the dawn of the jet age, it was luxury, and it was one of those where you dress up to fly, and we don't get to experience what flying was like back then, and most people have no idea what it was like. So we want to give people that taste of what exactly that was like. So let's walk up the stairs here and. This is another one of our pieces that's a little bit of a work in progress still. We're still working to reupholster all the chairs here. So.
Oh yeah, you've got.
So I'm gonna have you sit in one of the seats here. So.
Okay. Dang.
You probably fly quite a bit. Yeah, look at how wide that seat is.
The seat. You sit down in this and you feel like you're actually
cross your legs
sitting in a couch and you got some leg room.
Now we'll pitch you back here.
Oh, and you can recline in this thing almost like a real recliner.
Standard seat pitch, 38 degrees, if you can believe it.
Wow. Nothing like flying Allegiant nowadays where you're in a seat that's so damn tight you can't put your elbow down without pushing the other person out of their seat. Wow. Nice carpets.
Yeah, and we did. When we reupholstered these, we recreated as we found the airplane. This airplane was actually sitting down in Mojave, California, at the airport since September of 1980. So we brought this thing back to life, and
we even got the old time music playing.
That's right,
Harry
yeah,
Mancini,
1970,
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that who that is?
So, and I love all this baby blue. You know, this reminds me of my grandparents had an old Ford Pinto, and that was this color, this baby blue. So that's what reminds me
you
of.
don't have all the little hatches on the door. You just stuck your stuff up above, and if your plane turned too sharp, you got to have some luggage on your head.
Yeah, they weren't even luggage. You know, they called them hat racks at the time. So.
It looks like they actually had some pretty decent meals they were serving at the time too.
So everything we have here in the galley area was things that they ate actually. You know, the cheesecake. You know, it's all faux foods, all fake synthetic foods here. But you know, shrimp, tomatoes, cheesecake. So yeah, they ate really really well back then. And
wow.
We have actual hostess uniform. They didn't call them flight attendants back then. TWA called their flight attendants hostesses. An actual hostess uniform that we purchased from the TWA museum there in Kansas City.
And back in the day, there were some pretty stringent requirements on what you could do to be a stewardess.
Absolutely,
you had to weigh under 110 pounds.
Yeah,
and you couldn't be more than 5'2" or 5'6" or something.
If you're over a particular age, you weren't allowed to be a hostess. And I mean, you look at the restrooms even. You know how much room there was in the lavatory.
Yeah.
There, so.
Yeah. And now they had a holding tank there. You didn't just drop bombs as you were flying over the city, right? I always used to wonder that as a kid. If they're using the bathroom out there, where is it coming from?
So even the cockpit was, fairly spacious compared to a lot of cockpits nowadays. So of course, like the mini guppy outside, you also had the pilot, co-pilot, then you had the flight engineer as well. So
right. Wow.
Yeah, these were great airplanes at the time. They've kind of been forgotten, unfortunately, so that's why we're trying to revitalize and educate folks on what flying was like and about the Convoy 880. So I'm particularly passionate about it because my grandpa Gerling actually worked for Convair in tooling as machinist for 45 years. So the Convair 880 was something he worked on. So he's since passed away, but I know he would definitely be proud to see this. And then we got the one of the engines that it had here.
Wow.
Convair 880 actually had 4 of these engines. So this is the military version of the J79, but the Convair 880 had the civilian version, which was called the CG805s. So you can really get a good idea of how big the engines were in this airplane. So
yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, 4 of these things. That's what they had. So
and that's why it was so fast. And okay, now you might be able to answer this question. You might not. Back when I was a kid, we always heard sonic booms. I mean, sonic booms were an everyday occurrence. You'd be outside doing something, and all of a sudden, and nowadays, I don't know if I've heard a sonic boom in 20 years.
We hear them every once in a while. We have F-15s out of Portland Air Guard every once in a while. If the conditions are just right and they're out of the water doing training, we'll hear sonic booms. So immediately people get on Facebook and go, "What the heck was that?" And,
right.
And I love it because I grew up going to air shows and.
Yeah, I can remember sitting on the edge of a big old canyon looking for elk, and all of a sudden a sonic boom had hit, and it'd take you about 4.5 feet in the air before you came back down, wondering who was shooting right next to you.
I love it. I never get tired of it. So
no, I think the sonic booms are great, but did they do something as far as regulating airspeed and stuff to where most of your commercial aircraft don't?
Yeah, well, nowadays there's pretty severe restrictions on where exactly you can fly. Like if you're flying out of PDX, notice when you're flying on an airplane, you're pretty much following the river. You're not going over residential areas per se, and and then with the National Guard out here, they're they're pretty strict on where they're allowed to fly, which is why you don't really hear much in the way of sonic booms. Like I say, unless the weather conditions are just right, you'll get them over town here. So.
Okay, we just walked around the back side of this Convair that we just were inside, showing us what the old planes were like, and they've got one of the escape chutes for if the plane crashes. Yeah. I've never seen one of these. It's all air-filled, and it's a slide that you'd slide down out of.
We wanted to actually incorporate the emergency evacuation slide, because when we took possession of the airplane, this is actually owned by a gentleman named Doug Scroggins, who does a lot of movie work. You look up Scroggins Aviation Mock-Up and Effects. He does a lot of movie work. So he's worked on Sully. He's worked on Flight with Denzel Washington. He's one of these go-to guys in Hollywood now. So he owns the airplane. So when we took possession of it, when we walked into the interior of the 880, this emergency evacuation slide was all up and crumpled in there. And I thought, you know, why not incorporate it? So it's.
So can we try it?
No, I would love to try it. So but that slide, if you look at it, is dated June 1969. So that slide is a piece of history right there.
Can we cover up the
I would love to
camera
slide
and
on
you and
that.
I just
Right?
take a
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
jump?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, and now we got a series of tractors in here.
Yeah, a lot of old historic tractors, like this one's from 1960, some of the older ones even. Some of these tractors even predate the base, actually. This is, you know, a 1940 case tractor here. So some of these...
You got a 60 Massey Ferguson, you've got a Co-op. I don't know what brand that is, Big John Deere.
Yeah, something like this one is...
32
it's like, you know, the further you
Chalmers.
go this way, like the older they get. This one's 32.
And then you've got an old
29
Air Force tug.
Yeah,
That's what they used to
so-
move the aircraft around. That's kind of a cool little piece there. Yeah, several tractors. And what's all this over here? These here are aircraft engines?
Yeah, so yeah, and this is different aircraft engines from different parts, different airplanes.
1925.
Some are super old, some are more
1920.
modern. Some are 1940s, World War II.
A lot of them here are Vs. I thought that they mostly used the rotary engines back in the day.
Yeah, well, it depends on the particular airplane and the manufacturer.
Now, were some of them liquid cooled? I mean, like this plane here, this one here doesn't look like an air cooled engine.
Yeah, so like so like this one, the Allisons here, those were all liquid. Some were liquid cooled, some were air cooled during the Second
So they
World War.
actually had radiators on them.
Some of them, yeah. So
Wow,
yeah,
I did not realize that about airplane engines. I thought all of them were always air cooled.
Yeah, so yeah, just depending on the particular manufacturer.
And we've got like 20 different engines here that are out of a lot of different planes. You've got a few jet engines. This one here's kind of a cute little one.
Yeah.
That's a little jet engine, isn't it? Yeah, that's jet engine. Wow. This is just so cool.
There's something else. This is going to be another one of our walkthrough exhibits, interactive exhibits, Mount Hebo Air Force Station exhibit. So just a little bit south here was Mount Hebo Air Force Station. Here's some of the pictures. It was a radar station, as it says.
It looks like it's got a great big white dome on top for the radar unit to sit in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, if you go up there nowadays, unfortunately, the air station was dismantled many years ago, so there's nothing up there now. It's a great place to go up, just a great view of the area, but there's so much history, you know, that's up in that area that. There's really nothing in the way of, there's some small interpretive signage when you get up there, but that's about it. So we really wanted to tell a story about Mount Hebo and really give people an idea of what was up there to interact with. And
right.
So they had all these above ground tunnels. Of course, with as high up as Mount Hebo was at the time, you know, they were really subject to inclement weather. So blowing winds, hurricane force winds, snow. So they built all these above ground tunnels for you to walk from one location to another.
Which are basically great big coverts.
Right, exactly.
They just put 10-foot round covert together, and that's what your above ground tunnels were.
Absolutely, yeah. So
wow.
So this one isn't quite open yet, but soon folks will be able to walk through this, and so.
I love that you're still progressing with what you're doing here, and
it never ends.
And how interactive everything is.
Yeah.
We got some more tractors in here. We got a hang glider.
Yeah.
Is that one of the early hang gliders, or?
It's more. I think that's 1980s vintage, so not too old. So.
Still a big kite.
Still a big kite. So actually, there's a lot of hang gliding that goes on out here on the Oregon coast as well.
Is there?
So and you can see how much space we have here. Like
You're not even. We're about what, halfway through right now. And the thing that we haven't got to yet that we still have to get to, you've got 2 steam trains in here.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, and they look small. I mean, everything looks small in this building.
Absolutely.
And now, is this the size of the dirigible that was in here?
So this was a homemade airship. You see the aliens painted on the side here.
Right.
This is actually
looks like it should have come out of Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah, maybe it did. Yeah. This is the one that spotted the aliens. So no, this is actually significantly smaller than the blimps that were here during the war. So this is about a tenth of the size blimps that were here. So that really gives you a good idea of.
And it doesn't have a gondola on the bottom.
No, it didn't. Well, they used to have like a bucket where the one gentleman, James Thompson, who built the thing, would sit and fly it. So, but that's been removed now. So.
And one of the aliens has a great big spike. I guess he's going to poke a hole in this
yeah,
thing.
maybe. Yeah, I know.
So what were the dirigibles filled with that were here?
So they were filled with helium. With
helium?
Helium, rather.
Okay, because the hydrogen's so explosive.
Right, exactly. So, interestingly, even the stop here for a second. Wait for the forklift. So even the Hindenburg was actually originally designed to use helium, but they had to use hydrogen as their lifting gas because the U.S. Secretary of the Interior at the time, Harold Ickes, we refused to export any helium to Germany because we were really afraid that the Germans would use the Hindenburg as an offensive weapon. So otherwise, the plan was to fill the Hindenburg with helium. So they had to actually reconfigure it to use hydrogen. So.
And what kind of helicopter is this?
It's called a Scorpion. So. I don't know. I love flying, but I'm not sure if you could get me in that. So.
And now this Scorpion, is it homemade?
No, I believe it was. If I recall correctly, it was part of a kit. So this is a gentleman has it on loan in the museum here. So.
And do you need a license to fly this one?
Yes.
It's not an experimental.
Yeah.
Wow, and it is for sale. It looks like $14,000.
It'd be fun to go flying in once, but just to say you did it. But
I don't know. That looks like my speed right there.
Right, yeah, there you go.
I mean, if you're gonna die, you might as well do it grand style, right? That or the hang glider over here.
Right. And we have the two steam trains, as you mentioned. These are actually owned by the Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad, who operates a passenger railroad just a little bit north of here in Garibaldi, Oregon.
Okay.
They bring steam trains in here to work on them. So, and it's great because steam trains are kind of like fire trucks. It's like everybody loves them.
Yeah. But the thing that's amazing is that a steam train fit. You got two of them in here. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't look like you've got any. If these were the only two things in here, you'd be thinking, what a waste of space.
Right.
But even with all the airplanes, we still got
a
runway all the way down this thing with everything that we've talked about. That is 80 foot wide.
Yeah, we still got to go into the tent. Airplanes are under the tent still here. So.
And then we got some old military vehicles. We got an old model. It looks like a Model A truck, and. A Jeep, a military trailer, a military tow truck. This is just like, wow. And the back half of this, they must not have had enough stuff to put in here. I don't know where you'd find enough stuff to put in here, but it's all full of RVs. That must be an RV storage unit.
We're working on adding more and more exhibits out here, so every year we add more and more. So it's just definitely stay tuned. So it's old test propellers from aircraft dating to the 1940s. So.
And they would use those to see which ones were the most effective, or
right? Yeah.
Wow.
I love looking at all the wood grain on there. So.
They have some very pretty propellers. Okay, and now we're walking into wow, this is autos and airplanes inside of a big tent. Now, why do you have them inside the tent?
Just helps keep them a little bit clean. So we have a large colony of barn owls that live in here, barn owls and pigeons, and of course, barn owls and pigeons, they make a little bit of a mess. So it helps us keep things a little bit cleaner than they ordinarily would be. So, yes.
Okay, I was just curious. I've been here at Temple.
Oh, okay.
You're a good friend showing around, or you're actually
We have one of our guys, Dennis, working on one of the engines out here. So we're always working on restoring something out here. So this is one of the A4 Skyhawk engines. The A4 Skyhawk's the airplane out on the pole out on the highway, the gate guard out there. So that's one of the engines he's been working on. So yeah, we're always working on some new exhibits or restoring something out here. So.
Wow. Okay. Now under the big tent here, we've got 3 old automobiles. It looks like an old. Mercury, probably 48, and an old Nash, maybe like a 1920s model.
See, you know your cars too. So
Yeah, and I'm not sure what this little one here is. It's,
yeah, we got to do a signage on some of these still. So
I'm not. It's a pretty cool looking car. It looks kind of like the old MG.
Oh, yeah.
TR whatever's,
Yeah.
but that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's something else. And then you've got a lot of aircraft. Are some of these experimental or?
Yeah, so some of them were, and then also the FAA has a category called experimental, which doesn't really mean experimental like you or I might think of experimental. It's just a particular class of airplanes.
Okay. We've got
Some of these are.
we've got a couple of biplanes here on the other side.
Some of these, like the Newport, it was like a 7/8 scale replica with a 1946 air coupe.
No, like these. Are these World War I vintage, or
These
are they
would-
just reproductions?
Yeah,
or?
so it's a reproduction of a World War I vintage aircraft, the Newport 11. It's 7/8 scale, so it's almost about full size. So I mean, that gives you an idea of they're flying around in these like tiny little fighters during the war.
And are these still flyable? I mean,
yeah.
okay.
This one can definitely.
And the
still
first
fly.
one that we're looking at has 2 seats in it.
Yeah. We have our Sky Arrow. This particular one I find is always interesting.
Now we're looking at a cute little plane that looks like it's set up for a single person. That thing's not more than 15 foot
this
long.
is the Rutan Long Easy. This is
has the propeller in the back. Has a glass cockpit cover and fairly decent sized wingspan. I'd say the wingspan's probably 25, 30 foot long. And a little tiny wing on the front.
So this was the same type of aircraft John Denver was killed in, unfortunately, in 1997.
Okay.
So it really gives you an idea of what he was flying at the time.
This is the same style of plane, or
Same style of plane,
or it's
yes.
the same make and everything.
So yeah, same make, the Rutan Long Easy. Yeah.
Wow, he was in a pretty small plane.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize that it was that small.
Yeah, and you're really crammed into that cockpit too.
I'll
There's
bet.
not a whole lot of space in there. So, in fact, we can go behind here. I'll show you what it looks like inside here. This
Okay.
one, I think it's.
This is set up for 2 people. And he's in the process of opening up the
Get the
plexiglass right now.
There you go.
No wonder John Denver couldn't get out
Yeah,
of
they
this
get
thing. There you go.
So, but yeah, there's
oh man.
yeah, there's
How
not
do
a
you
hole in the
pour
room,
yourself
so-
into that? The distance between the seat and the dashboard's only 6 inches. You had to have some pretty skinny legs to be able to do that.
Yeah, and he didn't have a lot of
Wow.
aircraft was not full of fuel at the time. So what happened was he'd run out of fuel in one tank, and he was trying to move fuel from one tank to another, and the
Well, bailing out wasn't an option.
no. So he was reaching behind him like this with his right hand over his left shoulder to try to feed fuel, and it looks like he inadvertently hit the rudder pedal, and he was flying low at the time. So
Wow. Yeah, there's no room in this thing.
and he was actually a very experienced pilot. This airplane was the Rutan Long Easy was actually a newer airplane to him, but.
Wow.
We got our helium room here. So you were talking about the lifting gas for the blimps that were out here during the war. So this is where a lot of the machinery that made that happen.
I
is
was
located.
thinking maybe it was like an oxygen bar where we went
Oh
on
yeah,
and
right.
took
Yeah,
heaps of helium.
I always said that'd be really fun to be able to pump some helium in here. So that wouldn't be very healthy.
We could all sample it.
Yeah, right.
Talk like Donald Duck.
So here's some photos of some of the this massive sphere called the Horton sphere used to sit right outside of the windows here, and this would house some of the quote impure helium. Helium becomes contaminated very easily, so they'd pump all this impure helium out into this massive sphere, and then
the sphere, it says a 60-foot round.
Yeah.
That is huge.
Yeah, it is huge. Yeah.
And it says that a human's voice changes when inhaling helium by speeding up the body's sound waves when speaking, similar to speeding up your voice on a record. This causes a change in the resonance of the voice, making the voice pitch appear higher, like that of Donald Duck.
So here's some of the rail car with the helium tanks. So they brought the helium tanks up from just outside of Amarillo, Texas. and then they're buried into the ground. You can see in this photo here inside the helium room of the underground helium tanks.
Okay, and so they brought the whole helium cylinder that was a boxcar length long.
Right.
And probably, it looks like they're probably 24 inches round.
Right. Yeah. So
and it looks like they got, what, 5 of them on a rail car.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty good size. Here's
and Texas is where helium's main supply is?
Yeah, it was, helium's a byproduct of natural gas. So they'd ship it up by rail car. Here's a couple photos of that big, massive 60-foot sphere, the Horton Sphere again. So we're kind of in right here, and here's some of the buildings during World War II, all listed
and all
out,
of that's gone now. The hospital and the mess hall and
so
tennis courts,
some of the
steam plant,
some of the tennis courts are still there. The steam plant, which was right outside in this vacant gravel lot out here, is gone. So I wanted to put this out here so folks could look out this window and see actually what was out here during the war.
Okay.
See the large
then you got a huge air compressor.
Yeah. So and down below you are some of the piping. So what they would do is they would move all the impure helium over to the sphere, and then when this sphere had reached capacity, it would actually be moved over to another building just adjacent to the where the other hangar was, Hangar A. That was the helium purification facility, and they'd re-purify it and then send it back to the hangars. And then from the hangars, you could send it out to the blimps.
And we got a concrete floor in here with wood planking on it so that you could access to be able to get down in underneath to the pipes and be able to work on some of that kind of stuff. Then you got this huge old electric motor that ran the compressor. Wow. And so did they have pipes coming from this room going out into the hangar so that
it did,
with a portable hose, I'm assuming, to fill up the...
Yeah, I can show you those later too. They're running up at about 25 feet, and then from the from that piping, actually, you could use a flexible hose and move it from that piping to the airships themselves. So.
Okay. And then we come back out here again, and we're looking at a couple of another 3 antique vehicles. We got a 1928 Studebaker Dictator. That's very nice. We've got another Ford Model A. That's very nice. And then we've got a military ambulance.
Yeah.
That's
1940.
I'm assuming that's probably on the Dodge Power Wagon.
Probably,
running gear. It looks like the old Dodge Power Wagon panel van. And it's in really nice shape. Really a nice looking piece with the Red Cross symbol on it. And then we've got this jet.
We have this one. This one's a MiG-17.
A MiG-17. Okay, that's Russian.
Russian, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's got a really interesting air intake for its jet engines. It has a hole in the front that's about 2 foot round, and then has a divider for the air to go on back into the jet engine, and it all sits in the fuselage.
We actually have 2 MiG-17s here, actually.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. This one was in the Vietnam War. Interestingly enough, all the records for its service on the communist sides have all disappeared now.
Okay.
This is a British trainer, the BAC Jet Provost. So these are pretty much everything under the tent flies.
Oh, really?
On occasion.
So you still take them out and
they haven't got out in quite some time, but
now are these all owned by private people that have them
so we have,
held here in the hangar, or are these owned by the museum?
Sure. So there's a couple things going on. So we have some aircraft that are on loan to us from private individuals, such as these ones that we're looking at here, like the MiG-17s and Jet Provost. Then we also have aircraft that are owned by the museum. Donated to the museum at one time or another, and then we also have aircraft that are on loan from the U.S. Navy as well. Okay. So kind of a hodgepodge and variety of aircraft that are here for a variety of reasons. And you see, this is a Learjet 24. I don't know if you ever heard of this gentleman here, Cal Worthington. He used to run a series of car dealerships out of Washington and California. He had all these ridiculous commercials that would go, Cal Worthington and his dog Spot. And
actually, I think I've seen some of those commercials.
Yeah. So, and then they'd march out. It wasn't a dog, of course. It was some a wild animal like a tiger here. And so this used to be Cal Worthington's private aircraft.
Okay.
In fact, if you look
he sold used cars but drove around in a Learjet.
That's right. He was actually a World War II veteran. He was a veteran of the B-17 bomber, actually. So he's actually a very good pilot. And if you look at the tail number, actually, it's funny, they changed the tail number when he purchased the Learjet here. So N711CW for Cal Worthington.
Okay.
So it's got some interesting history for folks that remember Cal Worthington. So we had all of his dealerships when I grew up in Seattle there. So here's a World War II vintage 1945 A-26 Invader. So this is another great piece as well. So
This is World War II aircraft,
World War II
right?
era, yeah.
Was
Unfortunately,
it a bomber or was it a fighter or what
it was it was a bomber during Second World War. So
Okay. Really neat twin engine prop plane.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool looking plane. Sits
Yeah.
up kind of high, but
oh yeah.
I guess that's for loading and unloading the bombs.
It was built a little bit too late in 1945 to see any combat at all, but but it did see a little bit of combat with the French actually. So later on. So.
Okay, and now in behind this, we've got a little tiny something put underneath there. It looks like it's made out of 2x6s. What in the world is that?
That's a darn good question. I really don't know what that is, to be honest. So there's so much stuff in here sometimes, and you're always spotting something new. So.
Yeah, interesting looking little plane. Then we got a little gyrocopter, gyroplane it calls it. Which a lot of these were homemade, right?
Yeah. This particular one wasn't homemade at all, but yeah, this particular one was here was donated here a couple of years ago. So I think it'd be kind of fun to fly this thing actually. So, but
the gyrocopter, you had a helicopter prop on top, but you also had a drive motor that pushed it forward.
Right.
And so the gyro kind of made the lift.
Yeah,
is that
a little
how
bit different. Yeah. Yeah, most people just look at them and think that they're just like this one, for instance, like a helicopter, and think it's like a helicopter. They're really not. That's what they call them, gyroplanes, and not gyrocopters technically. So this is one of the Navy training helicopters that they use, the Cayman HTK-1, which they weren't used as trainers for very long actually, because they found pilots actually found it a little bit too easy to fly. So. And of course, they have those.
The timing on this had
rotors.
to be absolutely perfect. This has two of the helicopter blades on top, and they're only sitting 5 feet apart. Both of them on a bit of an angle to where there has to be intersection. How in the hell does that work?
I know it was interesting. I always point to people to this great YouTube video on there. It really shows how they work. And we used to have a little model when visitors would ask us that, how exactly they rotated without colliding, and that we could show visitors. So yeah,
the
it was
timing
really
had to be perfect.
design. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be angled down enough to where the top blade. Holy smokes!
Yeah, we definitely get that question a lot. So
okay, I'm looking at a Cayman, Kaman HTK-1. I am going to be looking this up on Google and on YouTube, trying to figure out just exactly how these props work, because this makes no sense to me. but it was very easy to fly, you say?
Yeah, it was actually in the pilots found it a little bit too easy to fly, which you really don't want in a training helicopter. So you want something that's going to be a little more difficult than something maybe you're going to fly later on.
And now, did it have an external drive like the gyrocopter, where it had a prop that pushed it forward and stuff, or did everything work off of the helicopter?
Everything was off there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's got a big round something or other behind it. I don't know what that is. This is a YouTube thing. Okay.
Got one of our Bell Sea Rangers. So we got a couple helicopters here as well.
Now, was this one maybe used for the Coast Guard? It looks like the coloring would be.
This one was used by the Navy actually for several years. In fact, as far as I know, it has. I have to look up the numbers again. More hours on it than any other Jet Ranger out there. So this is another one that's actually on loan to us from the Naval Museum in Pensacola.
Okay. And it's just a standard helicopter, pretty big cockpit area and cargo area.
Right.
And then we got a neat little experimental plane that is all plexiglass for the cockpit.
Yeah, this one's fairly new as well, so that's why we don't have much in the way of signage right here. So it's like we're always getting something new, or building something new, or working on something new, or restoring something, and so.
It looks like it's just got a little 2-cylinder motor in it.
Yeah, some of these smaller airplanes, you're like, whoa, it's like the glorified lawnmower.
Yeah. And this here's a home built.
Yep.
Brown Starlight home built. And it's just, again, another super small plane, probably just one person, and the prop's not even that big. That's kind of amazing. That prop's only from top to bottom with both sides is only
like 3
5
feet
foot.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah.
4 foot. It's
You're
not
probably
very
better
big.
estimate than I am.
It looks like it'd have a pretty hard time carrying the plane.
This one, like the Cessna 180, it's another one on loan to us from the Naval Museum in Pensacola. But you see, they used it. It was actually one of 2 of airplanes of the very first light airplanes to land on the North Pole.
Okay.
So,
And this one has Arctic Research Laboratory written on it. It's still, the paint and everything's really nice, and it's got a really nice set of skis that attach where the wheels are for landing on the snow and ice.
yeah, some cool photos. It had hit a pallet load of frozen fish there at the time. So they were slight
It's
mishap,
kind
though,
of
so
sitting on the side with the wing kind of bent a little bit. I hope they had duct tape to hold it back
yeah,
down.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, flying up there is a whole different ball game than.
Oh, I'm sure it is. But the air ought to be thick to where to where you can get some good lift and stuff.
Yeah, the Nord 1101. They also called him Willie Messerschmitt, who actually did design this. Of course, most people are familiar with the German Me-109 during World War II. He had originally designed this as to be called the Me-108. So it's kind of an interesting connection to Willie Messerschmitt. So a German designer during the Second World War. So then they use this.
This has a pretty neat cockpit in that it's got windows all around, but you've also got windows up on top, and I don't know what you were hoping to be able to see. Maybe when you were flying at night, the stars or something, or maybe they flew it upside down a lot. But you don't usually see sunroof type glass in an airplane.
Yeah. So definitely some unique airplane. This is the Fairchild GK1. This was used a lot as like an executive transport airplane at the time.
Wow, this is just such a fantastic museum.
There's so much here, and there's so much to read and interact with. And this one was donated by a year or so ago by a gentleman. He's actually a commercial pilot, flies for United. Had this plane for years. Decided he wanted to donate it to the museum. So I mean, again, we have plenty of space out here. So I'd love to be able to tell the histories of these particular aircraft. So.
So you're still taking donations and all that, people that are wanting to house something and still own it and have something that's a little bit unusual.
Absolutely. So again, it's history housing history here.
Right, exactly.
And it's something for everybody. I never wanted to have a museum here and set up displays where the wives will sit out in the gift shop and think, oh, it's a guy's thing, my husband's going to go through. But, there's, like, we have our Women of World War II display in the exhibit hall here, talking about the huge role that women played during the Second World War. And, there's something for kids out here. I really want there to be something for everybody out here.
Well, you have so much variety. I mean, we got the fire trucks, the tractors, the interactives with the simulators. Right. The fuselage that you can go in. I mean, it's just, there's so much here that I can't see that there isn't something here for absolutely everybody. Bring the kids here, and I can't imagine a kid not thinking he was in some sort of playground.
No, it's fantastic. We have our, it's closed right now because of COVID. We have our kids play area as well over there for younger kids as well.
Right.
Which is a great spot. So, oh yeah, my daughter who's 7, she loves this place. She's basically grown up here and, loves airplanes, and so.
Well, I would imagine the kids that are 15, 18, whatever, I mean, there's just so much to see, so much to do. And this is such an awesome museum. I really, really appreciate your time.
Well, I'm glad you came out here. This is wonderful.
This has been a lot of fun. It's been really good.
I appreciate you walking around with me.
And your time I know is valuable, but I appreciate you taking this time, and hopefully
It'll do us both some good. Around. Absolutely.
And when I get through with this, I'll be sure to send you a copy of it. As long as we're talking about that, what is your website?
So our website is www.tillamookair.com.
And do you have pictures of a lot of this stuff on there?
Yeah, photos of all the aircraft and exhibits, and tells you what's what. We also have a Facebook page, which the Facebook page is really a great place to go on to and really keep up to what's going on in here on a day-to-day basis, because stuff's changing.
And what's your Facebook page?
I guess if you just go in to type in, Tillamook Air Museum Facebook. I don't remember the exact URL now of the Facebook page. So.
Okay.
If I say it, I'll probably get it wrong. And
Well, do you have a YouTube channel that you're showing some of this stuff?
we do have a YouTube channel. We don't have a whole lot on there right now, though, but we do have that. So, but yeah, we are on. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, website, of course. So yeah.
Okay.
Facebook's probably the best place. Oh, sorry.
Nope. And as far as traveling and stuff, if anybody's driving down the coast, you're going to be at Tillamook anyway because you're going to come and eat the cheese.
Yeah.
This is a place that that you need to come to just to see this museum. It is well worth the time. What does it cost to get in here?
$10.50 for adult.
$10.50, and what's the cost for a kid?
So, depending on the kid, $7.50 or $3.50.
Okay, so if your kid's a brat, it's $7.50. If your kid's good, it's $3.50. So tell them your kid's good when you come in, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, you can't miss it. Driving down the highway, we get a lot of folks that call and say, hey, where exactly are you located? They say, hey, head 3 miles south of Tillamook, and you'll see this massive 1,000-foot-long blimp hangar from World War II. You can't miss it.
You can't miss the
there's
building.
Air Museum written on the side of the hangar. That's 100 feet tall and 30 feet wide. So you literally can't miss the.
The only way you're going to miss it is if you're not looking.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, there are towns that you drive through that are smaller than this place.
Right.
I've been through several of them. You blink and you miss it, but you can't really blink and miss this.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much history in here. As I mentioned earlier, the housing history, and when the Navy left in 1948, we had all sorts of interesting other things happen. John F. Kennedy was in the hangar here in 1960 when he was on one of his campaign stops. He was a senator at the time, and then we had David Copperfield, who was out in the hangar here in the early 1990s, making a train from the Orient Express disappear. So even once the Navy left,
I'm glad he didn't make the hangar disappear.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, absolutely. So
anyway, well,
thank you again.
It's full of wonder.
It is. Absolutely.
People need to get out and explore, see what's out here.
Yep.
And I'm wishing everybody has an absolutely wonder-filled day.
All the roll and go, where am I to go? Meet Johnny, where am I to go? For I'm a young and a sailor lad, and where am I to go?